When detox becomes dangerous. My name is Faith Hill, and that is certainly a topic that is very near and dear to my heart for sure. You know, when I first got into the natural world of health, there's so much information out there, and most of it is contradictory, which was really, really hard for me because I was trying to learn for my own health and my own benefit, and everything was contradicting each other, everything that I was reading, and it was really, really hard.
It's maddening.
Maddening. So, but that was even about nutrition. Detox is far worse.
It's worse, yeah.
There is not only a lot of contradictory information out there, but detox can absolutely 100% be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the right time and place to begin a detox, and not always is the detox, quote unquote, that you're trying to do effective in doing what you believe and think that it's doing. So I am with Dr. Pompa, who has given his life to detoxification to the true cause, the cellular level. It is my honor, and I begged him to do this interview because it is so special to me, but I have learned so much from you and what you truly have suffered for. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, how I got here, I went through that same process that you did, searching, my way out. I had what I would call an unexplainable illness where I had a lot of symptoms that just kind of came out of nowhere. I remember I was training as a cyclist at that time at the expert level and doing a lot of training, and I remember when the fatigue hit. Matter of fact, I had journaled it at that time, like, fatigue, and like most athletes, I thought I was overtraining, and I backed off the training. And usually you get on your bike after a few days and you feel stronger. Well, I didn't. Matter of fact, it went from feeling very fatigued to where I would just ride even 5 miles, which that may sound like a lot to some of you, but I would ride 100 miles. Yeah, exactly. I was riding 300-400 miles a week. So I'd ride just like 5 miles very easily. I would get a headache. And then it started from not just being fatigued, but I wouldn't sleep that night. Then it went to anxiety. Then it went to panic attacks. Then my digestion went, and all of a sudden I become very sensitive to certain things. Very bizarre. Sound sensitivity, anger for no reason. I mean, the list kept growing of bizarre symptoms. So obviously I realized it wasn't cycling. Matter of fact, I couldn't really even take a walk too far down the street because I would get that fatigued.
Wow.
Yeah. But it really went beyond the fatigue to symptoms that it became debilitating. And at that time, I was still a doctor. I was, treating many patients, and I wasn't able to do that anymore. So I really lost the ability to become an effective doctor. But then I started losing the ability to become a husband, obviously, and an absolute father, because I couldn't even handle the baby crying or one of the kids
the sound sensitivity.
Yeah, exactly. So so many people have a lot of these different symptoms, and it's really, I realized one thing: it was a neurotoxic illness. My adrenals were absolutely exhausted, but it seemed like every time I addressed my adrenals, I would get worse. Actually, it would either I'd have more energy, but I would have more anxiety and I'd sleep worse. And then my thyroid. I knew my thyroid wasn't working right. Either my blood work was always normal, which was always, by the way, very frustrating. Someone watching it could relate to that, but I wanted something to be abnormal because I just didn't know.
You wanted an answer.
And but it wasn't, and I knew my thyroid wasn't working just from my symptoms. And I was working at that time with a very, very bright endocrinologist. I mean, I read every book. I mean, I was researching.
All the research.
On those nights that I couldn't sleep and I had a lot of anxiety, I really that's when I sometimes would search.
Do your research.
Yeah, if my brain would clear at 3 in the morning, but I couldn't not sleep. But anyways, I became friends with an endocrinologist, really smart, and he was a thyroid expert and wrote a lot of books about it. And he said to me, one day, "Dad, I think you have mercury poisoning." And I said, I thought so too, because I was searching at the time with my symptoms, as probably most people watching this has happened. Right? You're on Google searching with all your different symptoms going, and Mad Hatter's disease came up, and I don't know if you know what Mad Hatter's disease is, but the people making felt hats were actually using mercury. And they use mercury to really knock down and attenuate the mold that gets in felt. Right, exactly. And so they used mercury. Well, they became mad as a hatter. Well, I looked at the symptoms of Mad Hatter's disease. I was mad as a hatter.
Wow.
I literally had every one of these symptoms, and it was absolutely horrific. But I was joyful when I saw it. I'm thinking, this is me.
It's an answer.
Exactly. But I went down, I researched like I do so well. The best guy in Pittsburgh, head of toxicology at Allegheny General, and I got a blood test. And when he heard my symptoms, he thought perhaps that's a possibility. But I got the test back normal. I was devastated. A whole year went by.
Oh, no.
And this endocrinologist says you have mercury poisoning. I said, I did the test. It was normal. Yeah, thought so too. And he said, what test did you do? I said, well, I did a blood test. He said, oh, that's the wrong test.
Oh.
It would only show if you had acute mercury poisoning, like you had a workplace
Makes
exposure,
sense.
right, because it's in your blood maybe 2 days, then it's gone.
Right.
He's like, no, this is chronic, where it's in your tissues, more specifically, Dr. Pompa, in your brain. And I had, looking back, I knew my adrenals weren't right, my thyroid wasn't right, but I really narrowed it down to, it was my hypothalamus pituitary. And by the way, that's the area of your brain, in the center of your brain, that controls your thyroid, your adrenals, your whole endocrine system, your whole hormonal system. I knew it wasn't right. But again, every time I tried to address it, I seemed to get worse.
Wow.
So anyways, long story short, is that's where I ended up realizing the problem was. It was mercury in my brain. The right test, the correct test where you actually chelate the mercury out of the tissues, look at the amount that's there, came back positive.
It's unbelievable because it's so validating for somebody going through what you call an unexplainable illness, or all of these different symptoms that from a medical perspective don't really fit together.
Right.
They're all different issues or separate issues,
Yes.
but what you, from your fundamental knowledge of being a doctor, goes, they have to be connected. And just even understanding our physiological makeup, they have to be connected. And I think that when you finally got that answer, I can only imagine that relief. At least now all right, what do I do about it?
Well, that's kind of where I was next. I have to say something, because you just raised, I think, a really good point. I could have easily, and I have many even, people that I see to this day who are okay with, oh, I have some bizarre symptom, and they almost are like, they just say, oh, if it takes the symptom away, they'll take a pill and take the symptom away, instead of saying, wait a minute, there is a reason why. And I couldn't I knew that I was normal, and now I'm not. There's a reason why. I remember going to doctors and them offering me psychotropic drugs.
I was going to say, it's not in your head.
No, but they thought, because my blood work was normal, that it must be in your head. And they politely and nicely, honestly said, here. Because, it wasn't an insult in their mind, but it was an insult to me, because I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. See, I was normal. It's like, and now I'm not.
And they're going, sure you are.
Yeah, right, yeah. And thank God I had a wife at that time that reminded me, so hopefully those watching have a good support system, that you were normal. There is something else. Something happened,
Something
and I
shifted.
never ever stopped looking upstream for the cause. The thing that's so frustrating is even alternative treatments, most people are just taking supplements down here,
That's right.
taking symptom away. It's still really getting rid of the cause. The only way I got well is getting rid of the cause.
Sure.
And that's where the research started, because then once I realized, my question to this endocrinologist then was, where do you think I got it?
Yeah, how did you get mercury? I mean, that's not talked about.
Right, exactly. So my mercury levels were off the chart. He said, did you have any dental work done around the time this all started? And I was like, I don't know, but I remembered having one of my good friends, best friends, put a gold in. I had 2 fillings, took out 2 silver fillings, which, by the way, this is why the endocrinologist asked the question.
Yeah.
They contain 50% mercury, and they leach the life of the filling.
That's right.
So there's no, oh, it's old now, because I hear that.
Unstable,
Yeah, it's old, it's fine, it's all leached out. No, life of the filling. Anyways, he had removed 2 and put a gold crown in there and a filling. And that's the only thing I could remember. So I called him and I got the date. And sure enough, I was journaling when all the symptoms started. I looked in there, and right when that was done, it was 2 days later that my symptoms started, after he took those out. So when he drilled the filling, he vaporized mercury. So those watching, please do not. We have a protocol for this.
Yes.
We have doctors trained around the country in this protocol.
Yes.
There's a proper way to set you up for success. And then 4 days after the last one comes out, which we're getting there, there's a proper way to get the mercury out of the body and the brain more particularly. But anyway, so I got that mercury out. 2 days later, the symptoms started. I read it. That page still has teardrops on it, because I wept reading my symptoms when I started. It was really the first time I went back and read what was going on, and now I had the answer. When it started, this was years later, I never correlated it with that. I thought it was the anesthetic.
Yeah, why would you?
I remember calling going, don't use that anesthetic ever again. I had a bad reaction to it, and then I never put 2 and 2 together. The cause was there. But now the bigger problem is the mercury now was trapped in my body. And the more I read, it wasn't in the body that the problem is. It was what's in the brain. Yeah, the inorganic mercury, the methyl mercury, the organic mercury, vaporized mercury can cross the brain and then there it turns to inorganic, and there it stays.
It's
For your life,
unbelievable. For
unless
your
it's
life.
properly
And
removed.
there are some natural health care practitioners that even know about the right testing
Right.
and may even offer you the right test. However, it's what happens after that
Yeah,
that
that's
can
when
get
everything goes wrong.
it gets very
Yeah.
fuzzy when you're looking online. That's for sure. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the test result back and you see this, astounding level of mercury and or lead, which we'll get there. What happens next?
Yeah. So obviously, you start reading everything that probably some of you have read. Chelation, right? The miracle magnet for mercury, and
The body spray.
You're taking it and you notice nothing.
Foot bath.
Nothing. Right? Yeah. I did them. I really did. I think I did every treatment that most people out there. I did these liver cleanses, this cleanse, colon cleanse. But meanwhile, God was taking me through a process of education, no
Sure.
doubt. And, learning that most of that stuff is just the scams. Some of it, they may detox other things, but heavy metals are unique. Heavy metals have to be used. You have to use something like a true chelator. And a true chelator has a double sulfur hydrogen group on it. I'm sure those watching care about that, but it's a claw-like configuration that grabs onto the metal and it grabs onto it until it's out of the body.
Wow.
But these true chelators can be used incorrectly. So we go from doing something that actually works, because all the herbals and the things you're buying in the health food stores,
You're saying
No.
they don't have that claw-like
No.
to grab the element and pull it out of
they
the
may
body.
have one sulfur group.
Right,
Okay.
so it could hold it maybe,
It's
or
weak.
attract to it.
Right, exactly.
But it's not going to pull. It could very
Right.
easily detach as it's trying to
Right,
come
so
out.
you could do a urine test, for example, with Chelation. You'll see no pull. I used to say, Chelation at least binds metal in the gut. Really looking at most of the studies and workups, it really doesn't even do that, and yet it's marketed as such. And then there's cilantro,
Right.
which actually does bind it a little bit, but it's weak and it circulates
So
metal.
then it circulates. And
I got very
chlorella-
sick from chlorella.
Chlorella also, there's a lot of bad chlorella out there that's
Toxic already. Loaded with toxins.
That's right. So
Matter of
you have
fact,
to
a
be
lot of
careful
these
with your
agents.
source, even in that, even though it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if you are getting that treatment, you could get more sick
Right.
because it's already laden with metals in and of itself.
Cilantro, I remember reading about, it pulls metal out of the brain. Well, I remember juicing some cilantro. I literally went crazy for about a month.
Wow.
Yeah, my wife thought she was going to have to check me into an institution. And I've had, some other patients have similar experiences in that. So you have to be very careful.
Very
these
careful.
these things that aren't good chelators, they're too weak and they just
So
kind
they
of
can
stir it up.
shift it,
Yes.
but they can't pull it.
They can't
There's
get
a big
it out of the
difference.
body.
Just because
Right.
it shifts does not mean it's pulling. So that's a
Absolutely.
really good distinction there.
Yeah.
Really good.
And then you go the other way. So now you go to true chelators, which now a lot of other doctors, allopathic doctors, use in injectables, right? They do IV chelation, which get online. Now you look at these things and you'll hear the horror stories.
That's
So
right.
IV chelation, I started reading about, said, boy, okay, this is a true chelator. It really
Yeah,
does
it's gonna
work.
have to work.
But if you don't use these things within their half-life, meaning that they're in and out of the body very quickly. So because of that, you do an IV. It grabs metal really good. It pulls some metal out, but then it's gone. It's gone in maybe 8-10 hours. That chelating agent is gone, and now metal is starting to come out and it recirculates. So people go home, and now for the next whatever days, they're starting to have symptoms. So,
I think a big key distinction that you shared with me about IV chelation also is that yes, it will pull, but you're talking about pushing in the vein. How is it getting eliminated from the body? You know what I'm saying? The blood is going to somewhat go through the gut, but there's really no elimination that happens. And so you're almost putting a stick in the beehive and stirring everything up with zero. And this is another distinction you made too, is that most IV chelating offices don't do anything to prepare the detox pathways for what's about to happen.
That's a whole other subject.
It's a whole other
Because
hat.
that's
But you
what-
can't. But the point is, you can't just jump in. Yes, we have standard American diet issues. Our bodies are not ready. Our bodies should be able to detox mostly
Right.
on its own anyway. They're not, for
Right.
good reason.
That's right.
So there's nothing supporting the liver, the kidney, the gut, and
Right.
all of these pathways that have to be clear
Yeah.
in order to detox. So there were a lot of fundamental issues with this IV,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it was making people a lot sicker, or they feel better that day, but then that night or the few days after that, they felt a lot worse.
One thing I always say is, the authority that I have in this subject, it doesn't come from my years of school. It definitely doesn't come even from the research that I've done. It really comes from living through this.
Yeah.
You know, again, the people that I coach through this, and I still do even virtually to this day, but you would never be able to understand it if you didn't live through it, honestly.
So true.
You know, we're training doctors around the country, which you're a part of.
Yes, I am.
And you live this yourself, by
Yes,
the way.
I am.
So she has her story. That's why she begged to do this interview. But it's a pet peeve of ours that it's done wrong.
That's right.
You know, that everything we're talking about. I mean, you can't throw a stick and hit a natural doctor that's using the wrong agents.
That's right.
Or the other direction where they're using agents that are making people more sick and it's dangerous. Or they haven't prepared the detox pathway. So, you know, this is something huge. We have doctors trained around the country, you know, doing this the right way. And that's a passion of ours because we see it,
That's
you know.
right. There's a huge need. Just
Yeah.
like you watching, you have your story. And you may be at this part of your story where you just know that you have symptoms and you don't have that answer yet as to why. And you're looking for that. And hopefully our goal in this is to help you, you know, either find a practitioner, which we can help you do, or even start studying the right way. And let us point that flashlight for you in this crazy world of Google that we have today. You know, let's help clear and muddle out some of this mess. And you know, and you may be at the part of the journey where you have the answer. You know what it is. You just don't know where to go from here.
Yeah.
And let us warn you properly. Let us warn you because we don't want you to get worse. You've lived with your symptomatology long enough, and we don't want you to go down a worse path. So, Dr. Pompa, tell them how they can even find a practitioner in their area that can help them, one that we've trained.
Yeah, you know, obviously even just going to my website would probably be the easiest step, you know, and go to my website and we can, you know, find that practitioner for them, you know, and we'll put that on the screen.
Because you do take, you know, you are coaching people still in your virtual practice, but you don't take every patient.
No.
So
no,
talk about that.
I definitely, I interview the patient through the process because someone has to be ready.
That's right.
It kind of leads me to this point because so many, and maybe people watching, if you're trying to get rid of heavy metals and you still have silver fillings in your mouth,
That's right.
that is, to me, it's malpractice that a doctor would even attempt it because after your body starts to clear up heavy metals, especially when you're using the actual chelating agents, where you take all the Krell you want, it's not going to do anything, right? But what happens is it'll start to pull the mercury from the filling, and then we get what we call the crazies. Then it starts, and then people are wondering what in the world's going on. So please, there's a right way to take them out. Obviously, you have to prepare the body.
Absolutely.
But there is a right way to do this detox, and you cannot start it till 4 days after the last filling comes out. So, you know, hear that and hear it loudly. But yeah,
so pitfalls. You know, just you saying it again.
I mean, that's,
you know, the pitfall with testing, and then it's the pitfall with getting the amalgam out the wrong way, and then it's the pitfall of how to proceed afterwards. And it is only by your trial and error and your story.
That's my authority comes in.
And that's that, you know, and nobody can take that from you. You got your life back because you didn't stop, and we are all set.
You know, and I have to even say this because I can't even take credit for it. It's not because I'm smarter than other practitioners. Like, because you say, oh my gosh, my doctor's so smart, how come he doesn't know this? I'm telling you, God led me to the answers. Just like you said. You said the same. God led you through a path. That's how you and I got together. But I believe in my heart of hearts that God led me through a path of showing me the right way. And that's how this material really was put together. And I know that's where your passion comes from, knowing that it's not me. You know, it was absolutely God who led this together.
Every protocol is very, very, very ordained and prayed for. That's for sure.
No doubt. Well, you know, after the damage, so I researched the way to get it out right. You know, when, how to get the amalgams out safely. 4 days after, now chelating it out of my brain. You have to clear the body first, and then after about 3 months, then we start clearing it from the brain. Pitfall number 4 maybe at this point. People do heavy metals, and I did heavy metal treatment. I got the test done. My test was like, how long did you do it for? I probably did it for at least 2 months, or 3 months, maybe 6. The average person who truly has a heavy metal issue, it's 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like
you're. That's not sexy. That doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell, right? It's like, I just want to do this detox cleanse, whatever it is, and now I'm done. And look, you know, the thing that truth is, we work with very, very sick and challenged patients, and it took them 30 years to accumulate these toxins, whether it's heavy metals or another one. If they came out in months, you'd be dead. You know, it took me 3 or 4 years to truly get my life back, but I did. I did. And
there's hope.
Absolutely. There's hope. It may take you less. You know, I was pretty bad, but the point is don't buy in to this month or 2-3 months. It just doesn't come out of the brain that way. The first 3 months, we just clear the body to set up a concentration gradient. So now that it starts to come across the brain, the protocol then switches to some agents that are fat soluble that can actually bring it across the brain. Now, once I went through that process, and by the way, life started getting better. Matter of fact, I'd have to say this, give them some hope. 2 weeks after the last amalgam came out, I could actually start sleeping through some of my nights.
Wow.
And there's something called galvanism. Remember I said that you put gold in. Well, if you have opposing metals like braces, other crowns with metal.
Like the gold crown you had.
Right, or just other crowns that you can see that's, that.
Yeah, porcelain fused with metal.
Metal,
yeah,
right.
any
other
implants.
metals. It causes galvanism, which is a battery effect.
Yeah.
That battery effect, number one, the current is bad for your brain.
That's right.
Many dentists, which your husband works in this field,
That's right.
will tell you that any metal in the mouth causes current is bad.
That's right.
When I got that removed, that gold crown came off, it was like, boom, and I could, again, most of my nights I could start sleeping again. That anxiety, that high anxiety went
Lifted.
down.
Yeah.
As soon as I got those opposing metals out. But it causes mercury to leach out of the remaining fillings 10 to 100 times more than normal. So now the mercury, remember 50% of the silver fillings are mercury, now it's pouring out when you have opposing metals. So many people have other crowns, who knows what other metal is in there, and silver fillings. These are the patients that are in grave danger. That's when I spilled over. My bucket spilled over once that gold filling went in because that galvanism started. Got it out, a lot of those symptoms went away. But actually, so then once I got the remainder out, started chelating, it was probably even I remember somewhere around that, after 6 months, that I just had life back again. Even my energy started coming back. But it wasn't
I think
about...
that's a really great distinction because, again, we're so conditioned to think that symptoms dictate the health of our body. And, you were feeling better, but you didn't stop. You went longer to get your life back.
But there's where you're wrong. This isn't the right way to do this is pulsed. We do what we call cycle, where we do it on, we do off, we do on. So you're not on these things all the time, you're taking breaks. But I actually made the mistake, you said it, many times I thought I was done.
Yeah.
I remember it was always my wife who would say, you need to start chelating again. And you could talk to her in another interview and ask her what she saw in me. But she knew before I knew that it was time to get back on cycle. I remember going 2 months without doing anything and thinking I'm fine. And then my wife was like, you need to get back on cycle. It was probably the irritability, the anger, one of the two.
Life's not a way of picking up on that.
But anyways, then I mean, literally within 2 pills, I'd be like, oh my goodness.
She was right.
Yeah, she was right. And then I remember going 7 months.
Wow.
And symptoms started creeping back in. It just starts coming out of the brain slowly.
But you were excited. You're 7 months.
Absolutely. I wanted to be done. I wanted to be done.
Yeah.
And then I remember my wife convincing me to go back on, and literally within a couple pills again, I was like,
that was it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it just took a few more cycles, but I needed to do that to just clear out again because your body lets go very, periodically.
It's a perfect way of describing how God led to the protocols, even the duration. You lived it. And that's how you know.
Through that duration, a lot of things got broken because of the mercury and the heavy metals. My cellular pathways failed. God showed me something which now I call the 5 R's of cellular healing and true cellular detox.
Right.
In the R's, R number 1 is removing the source. Do not chelate until the source is removed.
That's right.
And it could be a lead source, which we could talk a little bit about, but you have to remove source. The 5 R's came out of that is even how to teach doctors really how to fix the cell. And something I always say, if you don't fix the cell, you'll never get well. And restore these pathways and during this process, even to get the mercury out at the cellular level, you have to restore something called glutathione, methylation, cellular energy. All these pathways need to be restored to get that mercury removing safely. It's part of our protocol that we're obviously teaching doctors around the country.
And the practitioners that do learn from us, one of the amazing benefits of working with Dr. Pompa, not only is it his story that has driven a lot of the protocols, we do use a lot of the research and the tests that have been done in a lot of our hospitals and research hospitals and places all over this country and the world. So we're using cutting edge research and coupling that with the respect of the makeup of the body. That is probably one of the coolest things for me because those that typically respect the makeup of the body are not using the research from these, allopathics or, whatever, and vice versa. The ones that are doing the research are usually doing it to create a drug, right? And are not respecting the body. So I love that marriage, right, of respecting the body, but knowing that science is for a reason and that we need to learn these things. I think it's
I always say it's somewhere in between, right? Over here you have, a lot of really brilliant scientists, MDs, but they're doing IV or nothing at all, right? They're just giving, most of the time they're just giving medication. to really just
Alleviate symptoms.
Then over here you have alternative doctors who also have good hearts, but they're giving supplements not long enough. Here, take these for 2 months, you're done with the heavy metal chelation, or the things that don't work at all. There has to be something that actually works, done long enough. And really, that's what God really has led me to. And then also, like I said, the cellular stuff needs repair. To really get the mercury out at the cellular level, to do it to the level that really, really, gets your life back, you have to fix the cell to get well. Right. True detox happens at the cellular level. Go to my website, read under articles about R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, and you can see some of that what God showed me during my battle and my illness.
And a lot of the articles also on his website will even tell you the differences in how you're getting more lead versus mercury and things like that. But
it wasn't over just with me.
But no, it wasn't. But what's amazing, what we really want you guys to really hear in this video is detox can be dangerous. Detox is not a colon cleanse. Detox is not a liver cleanse. You cannot separate the organ systems of the body and think that you are healing the entire body. The entire body is one, and you do have to respect it, and you do have to work through everything, again, at the cellular level, or you're not going to get well. Find someone that knows this information. We are so thankful that you stumbled on this, and we know and believe in our hearts that we have saved some of you from making the mistakes that we made, and we've saved some of you from having to search hours and hours for things that we had to search and maybe would never have found. So we just thank you so much for this time, and we are excited to hear from each and every one of you. We are ready to celebrate you getting your life back.
Absolutely.